Okay, today is Wednesday, the 29th of November, 2023. And I'm Rex Gossett, a volunteer here at the VA Medical Center. I'm interviewing John Scott here at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center in Aurora, Colorado, as part of the Remembering Our Veterans program. So, John, can you begin by telling me a bit about your childhood and possibly where you were born, where you grew up?
Well, my childhood was the first five, well, not the first five, there was six of us. And my oldest sister was born in Texas because my parents hadn't really moved the house. But then when they moved over here, the other five immediately were born here. I shouldn't say immediately, but they were born here. And I had two older sisters, and then me, my brother, and then two sisters came. And it ended up being roughly 12 of us. But this was a good time. We were down on Downing, and that's where my house was. And the house is still down there. And so that's, and we grew up. But I remember my sister, my oldest sister, I jumped into my father's car. And of course, she was just 2 years older than me. And she was going to drive the car. Well, at that time, they had those starters that you punch with your foot. And I don't know if you remember those, but anyway, you punch them, but the car would shake and move. And the car did move, and we did move into a vehicle that was in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And but my mom and dad were still in the house sleeping. We were out there playing around as kids, playing in the car, and just having fun. So we found out that that was a fun that we weren't supposed to have. We learned that the next couple of days from my dad. So, but that was a little bit about that. And we had we celebrated Christmas and Easter. I mean, that was a good time. At 3.5, 4 years old, and then my mother and father, I didn't know about this, but they became separated sometime in there, and they took took us to my grandparents. Well, it took us really to her sister, my mother's sister, and we were there for a while. And then my grandfather found out what was going on, and he didn't like that at all because he thought we were going to be adopted, and he didn't want that at all. So he uh, he took my two older sisters. My grandmother took my brother and I, and my mother's sister, one of my mother's sisters, took my next sister, and one of our cousins took my baby sister at that time. And so we were really apart until this was while we were still in Denver, and in the late 40s, and we didn't get back together until 65, 66, something like that. But that was a great time for us.
So, was your grade school education here in Denver or somewhere
No,
else?
grade school was, well, my oldest sister, she went to school here.
Okay.
And my sister under her, I don't believe that she went to school here, but the rest of us didn't. And we used to watch her coming in from school and coming, just jumping and having fun and whatnot. But that's the way that happened. And it ended up being six of us because before we left, all six of us were born. There was 4 girls and 2 boys. 2 older girls, my brother and I, boys, and 2 younger girls. So that's who we were. We all was shipped out to Denver because my mother and father separated, and my grandfather did not want any of his grandchildren going into a foster home or being adopted.
Mhm.
So he talked to my grandmother, our actual grandmother, and they had separated over 35 years before they remarried to other people. And but my grandfather did not want any remarrying. I mean, did not want any children of his children being adopted out and all of that kind of stuff. So he got with my grandmother, my father's. My grandfather and my grandmother were my father's mother and father. And just to throw this in, my father was just a little 6'9" baby. I mean, boy.
6'9".
6'9". Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And they called him, you know, they used to call him all kinds of things. But I mean, he had a personality that was outlandish. He and my mother did, and but he was something else. They called him Frankie Boy because he was named after his grandfather,
Okay.
and his father's name was Walter, and so it was really it was an experience. I mean, when we started talking about that at times, when he would come down to visit us, my dad would talk about that, and it was an experience. I'm not glad that they separated, but I am glad that we had a chance to live with my grandparents. That
Okay.
was something else.
Where was high school then?
High school was in Waco, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Waco. Are you familiar with Waco?
No, I'm not.
Huh. Yeah. Waco, Texas is about 100 miles from Dallas and Fort
Okay.
Worth.
Mhm.
And you ever hear of Marlin?
No.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. But anyway, and Riesel was between Waco and Marlin. And Riesel was where the farm was. And we only had 600 acres, a little bit over 600. And
They almost had a full section then. Huh?
full section, what do you mean?
Well, 640 acres is a section of land,
Okay, yeah,
so you're close to it then.
yeah. And we had, we could, once in a while, I did the most walking around that place because it was something else. And one time, when my grandfather did raise cotton at the cotton field, those never did go away. They stopped planting cotton for some reason. And we always had corn, always had 15, 20 acres of corn every year
Mhm.
because we had all those cows.
Okay.
And and we would turn the cows at the end of the year, turn the cows in. Of course, we got all of the cobs off of the corn, and turn the cows in the corn and chew up the corn stalks.
Mhm.
And they would chew it down about a foot or so before touching the ground, and they wouldn't go down any further.
Okay.
But we had the sheep, so after the cows went in, we turned the sheep loose. They took it all the way down to the ground.
They do.
Yeah,
That's what sheep do.
yeah, and they were something else. And the ram was really bad. He didn't play with the cows or any, I mean, this one was one big cow, and the cows weighed 1,500 to 2,000 pounds. And she looked at him when he I forget where he was coming from. But she looked at him. She put her head down, and I'm just looking at all of this, and I'm about 10, 12, something. But I'm just looking at all of this, and he backs up that ram. He backs up about 20 feet, and the cow put her head down because she was thinking this gonna be the end of that sheep, and he came running, and he hit her right in the head, and she wobbled around a little bit, and she had never felt anything like that.
Mhm.
Of course, she never messed with him again.
Once was enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he was, I mean, they were the sheep. We only had the 4 lambs, the 4 and the one ram, but nobody messed with him anymore. He was something else.
Well, after high school, what motivated you to join the service?
Well, I was there were some people that came out, some recruiters. They came out and was looking at the high schools and whatnot, and they came around because they were looking to recruit somebody in whatnot. So I had been talking to 1 or 2 of them, and I had it. And right after high school, because I graduated in the end of May of 1962, and so I was going to go over and see him. I made an appointment. I was going to go over and see him on Tuesday. But my uncle, my mother's brother, he came up to my graduation, and my sister and I, my oldest sister, she's a year and 3 days older than me.
Okay.
She's born January 23rd. I was born January 26th. But we were in the same grade, and people thought we were twins. But I started school when I was 5.
Okay.
My grandmother, because I'm with grandma said she's not going to leave me around just sitting around the house. So I started the school at 5. And I remember the teachers asking me, how old are you? I said 5. She said, you're not no 5. I can still remember our conversation. You're not no 5. And because I was the youngest one in class and the biggest one. And so she kind of passed on over the conversation, but it was, and I never heard anybody talk about it like that, but it was something else. But I stayed in class, and I actually started school when I was 5.
Okay.
Because my birthday didn't happen until January. And so, but it was a great time. My grandmother was an amazing woman. She was a seamstress, and she sold, most of her customers were white people, but they would drive 50, 60 miles away just to come down, because my grandmother was excellent in what she did. And but she sold for everybody. But there was a time. I'm glad. I'm not glad that my parents, and I like to say this, separated, but I'm glad that you had a chance to live on my grandfather's little 650 acres, and that was something else.
Did you leave the farm then to join the service?
Yeah. And so right after the service, my uncle came down, because he came down for my and my sister's graduation, because we're in the same class, and he came on down to the house, and he was asking me what I was going to do. I said, well, I have this appointment next week over in town to see this recruiter. I'm going to go over there and sign up for the Navy. He said, you can ride on back with me, because he lived in LA at the time. You can ride on back with me and join the Navy out there. I mean, that sounded good. I said, okay. And but I said, I got to get permission from my grandmother or grandpa. So I went over and I asked my grandmother, and she was kind of, she didn't want to stop me from doing it. I mean, but she was about to cry. And then she said, go ask your grandpa. So I went over and asked grandpa, and he just, go ahead, whatever you want to do.
Did you have a preference for the Navy, or did you consider another branch?
Well, my grandmother's son, one of her sons, not my father, was in the Air Force, and he was pilot, and he got medals in the Korean War for shooting down other planes.
Okay.
So she was very, very. My grandmother was. Oof, you don't meet too many people like that, and my grandfather, but they were something else. I mean, if that made any sense to you. So they they I went back. I drove back to L.A. with my uncle, and I stayed with him for a month. And he took me down to San Diego, and that's where I joined the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What wars, if any, were you in?
But war.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't joining to go into any war. I mean, but I did go into Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam?
Yeah.
Were you in country or on board? Were you on a ship or in board in country?
I was on the ground night and day, and Agent Orm was fired at us night and day. They started firing at 10 o'clock at night, and it would go to 12 or 1 o'clock in the night. This was every day, every night. And but that was, and I was, of course, the corpsman for the Marines and for the civilians.
Okay.
Yeah, because the civilians came up, and this little girl came over, and she had this white phosphorus that had hit her on the head.
Right.
And it had wrapped her skin, her skin, up the hair on her head, skin, fell around a different part, around her neck, like a big bracelet. I'd never seen anything like that. And, but they came over to me because somebody had told them, you got somebody over there that that's willing to help you, that's love to help you. So she came over, and she wasn't crying or fussing or anything. And so I just looked at her, and I called in one of the helicopters to take her to the ship to get some medical treatment. And then they were sent out to someplace else. And this one lady came in, and she had a big hole in her thigh, and she wasn't bleeding, but you could see the bone, the big bone. I forget the name of the bone there, but and it was amazing. So I did patch her up and called in the helicopter people, and they took her. They took her with them, and oh man,
Was that one of the more significant events then? Was that one of the more significant events of your time over there?
well, no, I had to. This a daily thing. I was over there for 5 months.
Okay.
I was overseas for 13 months, but 5 months in Vietnam, and I had to doctor on of course, the Marines to keep them out of. A lot of them wanted to hurt themselves, so I had to give them some kind of speech on that, and even sign them up to get them out of there because we didn't want that. And this one guy, this one Marine, he had started shooting the tires off the vehicle he was driving. Yeah. And this one guy, he was been transferred to another company, and he had his rifle in the bag, and he threw the rifle over his over his shoulder, and the guy was standing right next to me, and it went boom, and the guy fell down, and I looked, and the guy whose rifle had done this, he fell down too. So I knew, but I looked at the guy on the front. The bullet had gone through his arm, and I looked at it as if I could see all the way from this arm all the way through to the other arm. I mean, through the other arm, I see the top of the lungs been just torn up. So it was. I don't mean to but it was a big thing, and so and then because he was out of it, so I handcuffed him so he wouldn't get up and try to mess himself up with anybody else with a gun. Took all of his weapons from him, and I had to do a lot of things. I mean, corpsman, because I mean that was good for me because it was a blessing to be able to. It was a blessing to be able to have. I never did get no fear tormented me or no. I got to get out of here and stuff. None of that. That was never. It was a blessing for me to be over there to help them.
Well, sounds like they depended on you quite a bit. Was that sort of independent duty for you?
Yeah, well, it was like corpsman. Well, that's that's what I'm stationed with the Marines. We had 2 foxholes, one for the day and one for the night,
Okay.
because they did have people come out, and some of the Marines would go out because we were stationed. I mean, not stationed. We had stopped by this big rice paddy,
Mhm.
and people would come out, and a lot of women come out and wash themselves, be doing a whole bunch of things in the rice paddy, and that was just a normal thing for them to do, and it was, I mean, that was an experience, and I was just when we first got over there, but I don't know if you ever hear about, you ever hear Diana Ross? You ever hear that name?
Yeah. Yes.
Her cousin, her first cousin, had come in. He was the first one shot,
Okay.
and man, that was something. I mean, none of this was expectation. We just been on camp. I mean, on this place, 2 days, and we saw them bombing the bridge. Said we're not going to be able to go out that way. All this information is coming. Because they bombed the bridge on us, so we no place to stay but here. So at night we stayed right there. Everybody was. I didn't know we were in this graveyard. I didn't really, because it didn't look like a real graveyard, but it was a graveyard. And at night I woke up. I mean, I was going to sleep up there, and when I woke up and looked around, no, I mean everybody else was down at the bottom of the graves. So I looked around and moved just a little bit. And all when I did move down, when I heard this chip 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 from this, because my head was right up there where they were doing it, and somebody had apparently been looking at me and thinking about putting a bullet in me. But I slid on back down with them, and I went back a little bit further into the wooded area just a little bit, and I was standing over there by this big limb that was pulled back, and there was a knife that the Vietnamese used a lot. They would tie knives to things like that because when they snapped the string, they would go forth like that and stick into people and whatnot. I said, "Doc, look, watch out!" And it was that experience. I never experienced, well, because I'm in war, but I never experienced anything like that. And it was not just for myself, but I had to be a blessing to everybody. Because, like I said, I not only had to uh, help our Marines and whatnot, but I also had to help the civilians too.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your situation. I was in the Navy also in the Pacific about the same time you were. And of course, I was on board ship. I had a good friend who was a corpsman. He had similar experiences as you. He served with Marines.
Yeah.
So I admire what you did. That was quite a responsibility. So I really appreciate that.
It was really something, and I never had any. It was a blessing to be over there. There was never any fear. before I got into the Army, at the end of my high school, my grandmother's sister had given me this wallet, and she put some money in there, and she put this little Bible in there, one of these little Bibles, and I kept that. I still got it, and Aunt Blanche was something else, and she gave me that, and I'm not sure why it could be called, but and this that I had the Bible to read, and I would practice. I would read through it and read some of it just about every day. So, but no fear. Thank the Lord for that. No fear came upon me or any of that, but because I had. I hope this is okay. But the latrine deal, well, not the latrine, but the outhouse. We had this big outhouse, and they had, I think, 7 seats in there, and so my friend and I were sitting in there, and there was a guy sitting on the other end. He was talking to him, and then he asked me. He said, "Did you hear what he said?" I said, "No." He said, "He's from Denver." Okay, and so next few days, less than 3 or 4 days, he came up back to the base because he had been hit by all the shrapnel. So I had to take out the shrapnel from his back, his buttocks, his legs, and everything. And he was asking me. He said, "Will you go by and see my parents and tell them that I'm okay?" I said, "Yeah, give me your information." So he gave me his information, and this is making any sense.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is, I've done it. But anyway, so he gave me his information. So and I went by, when I got back to the States, I went by, and I didn't know he had a sister. His sister worked for one of the big grocery stores at the time, and Miller's, I think, was the name of it then. But anyway, she had been working for him since high school, and so when she came in at 10 o'clock that night, because she was still staying with her father, they told him a little bit. She said, "You just ran in there and grabbed me and hugged me." And she said, "You want to go swimming tomorrow?" So I'm just, "Okay, I'll go swimming with you." And her father was a retired major from the Army, from the Air Force. And so, okay. And she could really swim. So I went over, we started fellowshipping together, and we began to like each other. And said, "Well, okay, this is okay, all right." And we thought about getting married. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's head out to Colorado Springs. So we were in agreement. So we were going to tell my mom. So we went by my mom's place, because that's where I was staying pretty much. And my mom said, "Did you tell her mother and father about this?" "No." "Well, get your hat on and everything. We're going over and tell them right now that you guys want to get married." So I hadn't really thought about that. But anyway, we went over there, and the mother's upstairs cooking. The father's down in the basement. That's where he spent most of his time. They had a big open house, and watching TV and everything. So we went down there, and she said, these people, they want to go get married." And he just looking at my mother. So she said, "So I had them to come over and tell you that you know what's going on."
Was this all while you were still in the Navy?
Well, I have been extended 5 months because I was supposed to get out in January, and so I had to be. They automatically extended me 5 months.
I was kind of curious if this was maybe the best part of your service time.
Let me say that again.
Was that one of your best
Oh,
best part of your service time?
yeah, it was. And so we said, but she said, I brought them over here because they are not going to get married. I told them, unless they let you and your wife know. And her father just standing up there with his mouth kind of open. He wasn't saying, first time I've really seen him like that. But anyway, so she said, because she was going with the preacher at the time. And so, but he sold cars, the used car place.
Mhm.
So she said, come on over here to this, we're going to go over to this, to where they are, and they're going to marry, he's going to marry you. We went over there, and he left his Bible, so he couldn't do it. But the other preacher there had his Bible. So guess where we got married? We got married at the used car lot.
Okay.
And it was me, my new bride, my mother, and my mother, her father, and those two preachers. That's everybody that was at the wedding.
Wow.
So the preacher did the wedding, and so I mean everything was just good.
Oh, did they give you a used car as a wedding gift?
No, he didn't. But we said we're taking off because she did have her own car.
Oh, okay. Good.
So we said we're taking off. So we did take off. We're going up into the mountains. We got married up there.
Good.
I mean not married. We got married right here.
Right.
But we went on honeymoon up there.
Okay. Good. Sounds good.
Man, that was.
I'm curious, your time in service then, would you awarded any medals or citations while you were in?
Well, yeah, I had those, and they. Excuse me. They are a little bit in boxes and whatnot in my storage, and I think some of them are around the house. But I did get some, yeah. But that was the experience. I don't really go into sharing that a lot, but I probably should. But I mean, for my kids' sakes too, because it was a great blessing.
Once you left the service, what particular occupations did you have, or what did you do?
When I left the service,
Yeah.
okay, when I left the service, I had because I was used to helping people, so I did do some volunteering immediately with some of the nursing homes and things like that. But it was because it was, to me, it was a blessing just to talk to people. One of the things that the Lord showed me is don't try to make anybody do anything. You have to get their cooperation. I mean, that's what He does. He don't make you do anything. You have to get it. You have to get their cooperation, or else it just won't be done.
Yeah, right.
And so, when he showed that to me, he showed me some words that I had to speak to people to get their attention, and the attention is that what are the big things? I would ask people, what does it take to please God? And there was a little disturbance. I said, what does the word say? It said, it takes faith. Okay, all right? I said, where's your faith located? Huh? Where's your faith located? They had never heard that question before. I said, the Bible said it's in your mouth and in your heart. Do you have a mouth and a heart? Yeah, that's where your faith is located. What you believe and what is out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So whatever you speak about, that's what you bring about. So, huh? Yeah.
So the mouth kind of speaks your faith then.
So what else?
The mouth speaks your faith.
Ooh, that's where your faith is located.
Yeah. Okay.
Your mouth releases it.
Right.
And I said, Have you ever read chapter 1 of Genesis? Huh? Chapter 1? Yeah, it said in the beginning, in chapter 1 of Genesis, it said the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And God spoke and said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Ooh. And then he, even in the morning, the first day, and then he spoke again, and the sun, calling the sun into existence. And then he called the trees and whatnot. And then he called the animals and the fish in the sea and the birds in the air. I said, you just asked a question. I said, who named all of those things? I said, huh? I said, who named all of them? I said, Adam named all of them. What? Yeah, because God read them by Adam. Whatever Adam called them, that's what they were. I said, so I just threw this in. I said, when he saw that little piggy-like thing, I said, that's what he said. I'm going to call you a pig. No, but I said, no, I was just joking. I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, but Adam named all of the fish in the sea, all of the birds in the air, all of the animals. He named all of them. And he wasn't around there scratching his head and said, I wonder what I'm going to call him. And then God said in verse 26, we're going to make man just like us. What? Man just like us. God is the spirit. He made us just like him. So we are a spirit. We have a soul and we live inside of a body. Not like what Jesus said, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So, living by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God, that's talking about the physical body. And your physical body needs physical food. Your body does. And so man should not live but you're still three parts. The spirit needs spiritual food. Mm-hmm. He said the word of God is spirit and is life. And then of course we are spirit, soul, and body. The soul consists of your mind, your will, and your emotions. I said, when's a good time to stop learning? Well, you don't have to learn all of this and whatnot. I said, the Bible said it's never a good time to stop learning. Learning is lifetime.
That's right. So what are you doing now then? You're retired, I assume?
I retired roughly 13 and a half years ago from City County of Denver. Okay. As a chaplain. Mm-hmm. And that was the best position I ever had. But I'm also a pastor, and I've written a few books. Most of them are still in stores, but I have one that's on Amazon. It's called Forgiveness, the Key to Pleasing God. Okay. Forgiveness is the highest expectation of love against the suffered wrong. If you don't forgive, it's impossible to please God. The scripture tells us without faith. And faith works by love. And love works by and through forgiveness. So, and forgiveness is the highest expression of love against the suffered wrong. If you're not walking in forgiveness, the Lord said, don't come to me telling me that you love me and you hate the brother or sister that you see daily. He said, that ain't true.
And you say the greatest of these is love, though?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
The greatest is love.
All right.
And so, and he said, examine yourself and see if you're in faith, not your brother or sister, examine yourself. And that's one of the big things that the Lord told me, so I wouldn't get upset with people or anything. But it was a teaching experience, and everyone that's paid attention loved that, ensuring our responsibility and how great we are. Because if you notice, God don't make you do what He tells you to do, but you are responsible for it.
Yeah. You have any particular hobbies or any interests?
Hobbies?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, used to do a lot of bowling and playing dominoes, and then I got into Taekwondo. I was in Taekwondo for quite a while, so I finally got up to third degree, and but I haven't worked out in Taekwondo in about 7 years, so my body has gone kind of. I gotta get back into the activity, that physical activity.
You trying to say you're going soft a little bit there, huh?
The what?
You're going soft a little bit, huh?
See, that's
I
see
know the feeling.
that happens automatically.
Oh, sure.
You know, God doesn't want that, and so I know you're mistreating yourself.
I tease my wife. I tell her that my body's catching up to my age. So,
But see, I like what I talked to the Lord about this. I said Moses was a man 120 years old, and he pleased God.
hmm
You know, he pleased God. And said Abraham was a man that pleased God. We are of Abraham's seed. You know, Scripture lets us know that. So all the blessings of Abraham belong to us, but unless you claim them, they won't be coming to pass for you.
Okay.
So we got to everything that's out there. When God, He said, He showed in Genesis 1:26. I love that passage. He said when we're gonna make man just like us. So when man speaks, when God speaks, it happens. So when man speaks, it happens. Say what? You really mean that? But He said it in Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. God only speaks life. Satan only speaks death. But mankind can speak either one.
Yeah.
But whatever you speak, that's the way it's going to be.
Out of all your experiences, is there any one particular experience or event that stands out as something as an amazing or once in a lifetime event?
And I used to work for King Supers. That's after some things. That's before working as chaplain. Because I really wasn't thinking about being a chaplain. And they asked me to do that and talked to me about 2 or 3 months and finally said, "Oh, you're going to do this." No. But I finally said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I came on, and it's chaplain of the Denver County Jail would hire chaplains, but they were not headed through the city and county of Denver.
Okay.
Because this was just the Denver jail doing that. And then the lawyer, Beth, I believe was the name, he was third down from the mayor, but his office was out there at the jail. And and the chief of the jail, because I used to ride around with the chief to go and minister to people, because he took me around when we were getting the new jail put in place in downtown.
Okay.
And so and that did happen, and that was a big thing. But some people didn't want me as chaplain of Denver County Jail, but not. I mean, some of the sheriffs at that time. I had just come up from the back up to the front, and I asked the sheriffs up there, I said, "Will you let me go into the back?" "No, you're just a chaplain. You don't be going in the back." I didn't say nothing to them. I just went in there where Mr. the third man from the mayor's office. He came running out there. I felt sorry for those guys. He said, "Don't you tell him ever. He can go any place in this jail he wants to go.
Okay.
Don't you ever tell him anything else." And they just sat up there. They had sad looks on their face, and so I never heard that mess again. I could go any place, and it was a good thing because it all connected, and it connected everything that I have been doing in life connects me back to the farm.
Well, your how did your service experience affect your later life?
My service experience, been I was in this one company called Foxtrot,
Okay.
so they call me Doc Scott of Foxtrot.
Okay.
So that was really that was a blessing, and it was. I mean, they enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was a blessing for me, and it was a blessing for them. And I wasn't pushing anybody to do anything like that. It just came up. But my experience, I did, like I said, I did get extended for 5 months.
Okay.
You know, because they were doing it at that time. And but when I got back to the States, when nobody at I think it was Camp Pendleton, but wasn't nobody out there.
Hmm.
And so I had to, when I say nobody, just a few people, and they had this big room for people. They still had the bunks and everything, but and I had to. That's where I stayed
Okay.
because ain't nobody up there, and the food, because they got to go get the food over there. But it was it was, but that's all that I mean, I didn't know how long the Vietnam deal was going to be
Yeah.
going on.
Any particular life lessons you learned from
Ooh,
your service experience?
yes. And the Lord taught me a whole bunch of things to, first of all, be obedient, because you do have to be obedient, and you do have to, we are helpers. You know, that's what he showed me in his word that, you know, my aunt's Bible that she gave me, I'm reading it, because out there in the foxhole on a daily basis, there's not much else to read.
No, yeah.
So I'm reading that, and the Lord just showed me so many things.
You have to be obedient to yourself, too.
It was but it was a blessing, and it's people just say to me, Scott, and it's on the same phone. You don't ever get upset about anything. I mean, what's going on? I never heard anybody express it like that. If you don't, all this going on, you don't get upset about anything.
Hmm.
But it was, I don't share this one too often, but could I say this real quick?
Sure, please.
There was we stayed in it's Corman, this before I went overseas. Coming down into the barracks, I was standing up by the window, and this guy was coming through, had his rifle on the shoulder, because we had to take our rifles out with us every day. And this guy pushed the guy over, and his rifle hit me on the lip.
Hmm.
So I went over and pushed him for pushing the guy into me.
Mhm.
And he was upset about that. I didn't know he was upset. And so my bunk was right there, and there was a bunch of people every day because of they just like to play cards right there,
Okay.
you know, right there. So I'm and my bunk is on the top, so I'm getting ready to get to lay down a little bit. So this guy came running up there. God, get up! And he had broken his rifle down, and you know, the barrel part and the wood part, the handle part. So I just got down. I don't know what made me get down. I just got down, and he just came over and he swung that butt. I mean, you know, it's like a bat, and he dropped it and he took off running. I picked it up and I threw it, and it was like and it hit the belt, it hit the things on the bed, the posts on the bed,
Right. Okay.
and it just it wrapped itself around that post, I had never seen that
That's
before.
odd.
And if you it's the deal in the service, if you mess up any weapons or anything, that's a grievance thing. You can get punished for that.
Right, sure.
So, and it had to be peeled off. So, and he came back and he got the rifle for it now. And I don't know why but I stood back up. And I mean, I wasn't afraid of anything, but
Right.
and he swung that and he dropped that. And so I picked up the ashtray that these guys, because nobody was saying anything. And I threw that, hit him right in the back with it. And the everything kind of went down. And we kind of slowed down, I mean, after that. And I don't know why it's a minute, but I just went on back and jumped back up in the bed and went to sleep.
What are some things that you miss from service life, if anything?
Some of the things that I missed was, just this kind of, I had to treat people on a daily basis. I was a corpsman 24 hours, and I had to treat people on a daily basis, and physically and mentally. And that the mental part didn't happen a lot. I didn't hear a lot of people talking about that, but people need to be treated.
You're kind of the resident psychiatrist also, then, huh?
Yeah, they do, because
Well, I can appreciate that.
yeah. So I mean, and so that I love that, and I love what the Lord was. I didn't know that He had this great plan for me after I got out of the service, but because as I mentioned, I didn't want to be a chaplain, and this guy asked me to be a chaplain. There was a group called Gabrielle and Hickey. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but I used to do some ministry with their teams. They come and go in with them to minister. And the guy that was head of that board, he said, "Brother Scott, you ought to sign up to be a chaplain." I said, "I'm not thinking about being no chaplain." And he just kind of grunted and just kept on stepping. And pretty soon, it's been about a month or so, I went to the person that was my head guy that's over me, Mr. Burris, and he said, "Are you going to do this or not?" And I said, "Well, okay." So I signed up for it for the chaplain, and they hired me for $15 an hour.
Oh, okay.
And so I did that for about a year and a half, and then the guy that was third guy from the mayor's office, he was still out there, and the chief, they came in and said, "We want to hire you to be chaplain with the city. You'd be the first chaplain hired by the city and county of Denver." Okay. So they hired me. I went from $30 an hour to $15 an hour. I mean, from 15 to $30 an hour, and it was something. They were all happy, and I was happy too, because I had learned so much during a year and a half that this was just a blessing for me, and because I had performed marriages, and primarily didn't have to, once in a while I have to go out and help somebody with the death situation, but marriages, and well, I did a lot of marriages in the jail.
Well, you did a lot. You didn't do all this by yourself, though, did you? You have somebody to assist you or work with you?
Really, truly, Nope, I didn't have anybody.
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody to do that.
Well, they really kept you busy then.
Yeah, it was a busy deal, but it was needful for me. I didn't realize how needful it was, but it was needful and a blessing to me, for me, and I do praise the Lord for that.
Hmm.
Every time I look back on it, it was a blessing.
Very good. Is there anything about military service you think the civilians should be aware of?
But the service that they should be aware of.
Yeah. Do you wish more people should be aware of what military service is, what it is to be a veteran?
Well, they should first of all be aware that they need to be attentive to what is going on, what the instructions that they're given, that they've been given, and pay attention to those, because the military does love to correct you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and they will do that. And I did have some correction in the military when I was, because I used to. But one of the big things is listen to what's going on, and then do some study yourself, and so that you can see. And I was let me say this. I have been. I was in the service 3 years, 9 months, 25 days, and about an hour, except for the 5-month extension.
Okay.
And they had asked me to you have to know who you are at all times.
Mm.
You know, not no pointing finger, not no bigot way or anything, but been helpful, been a helpful person.
Mm.
And so that's what I learned to do. Well, I actually learned that from my grandparents, and been on the farm, because
Yeah.
we had so many different people that were at our farm on the pretty much on a weekly and sometimes even on a daily basis. And but the military thing was was a great source of information, as I mentioned, about my uncle that was shot down some planes in his excuse me, shot down some planes and got some medals for that.
Mm-hmm.
But oh boy.
What would you like people to know or remember about your journey?
About what?
About your journey from the service through just your life in general, anything in particular?
Is that you go from, there's a statement in the scripture, go from faith to faith, blessing to blessing. It's not going from faith to no faith, blessings to no blessings. No, keep that, get a figure where you're saying you're climbing up the hill all the time.
Okay.
And you get to some areas of flat land, that's a little resting place and a little party and other things, but you never decrease that.
Mm-hmm.
And you help other people to do the same thing.
Okay.
So that's one of the big things that I learned. That's one of the big attachments. And like I said, the Lord gave me a book on forgiveness, the key to pleasing God. And it's on Amazon, and it's been there for a while. I'm going to have to check with them to see why it's not doing what it should be doing.
Mm.
But you can't please God without forgiveness, because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son,
Okay.
that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And so that is a must know and a must do whether anybody's around or not. If you're just out there by yourself, you got to be faithful with doing that. And
It kind of leads into a question as to what message would you like to leave for people who may view this interview, as to any particular words of wisdom or anything you want to leave with them?
let me say that again.
Okay. What would you like to leave for future generations who might view this
Oh.
interview?
Man,
It's
it's
kind of a
that.
loaded question. There's a lot to go.
But one of the big things to realize is that you are somebody special to God. Nobody can put you down like you can. And God never puts anybody down. He said he makes the sun to shine on the evil and on the good. God did not, he's not pointing his finger of criticism at anyone. He's hoping that everyone will return and be a very, not a victim, but be victorious in life.
Okay.
That's what God wants for everybody. And he wants us to help others to do it. We're not just to, we walk by faith and not by sight. We're not just to be doing this just for ourselves. It doesn't work like that. You have to share it out to help others to do the same thing. And you see how beneficial that is. And so that's what the Lord wants for us. And that's what I want myself. And I'm telling you, it's everybody I see. Whether I'm in the grocery store, on the street, or wherever I am, not just in church, but wherever I am, I like to ask some questions and share with people, and their mouths come drop open, and they look, and some of them haven't been thinking this way, that I'm sure, and some of them have, but it's good. I like to share with people,
Mhm.
and that's what the Lord has shown me, and so.
Is there anything you care to add to this interview that we have not covered?
Well, I like to do this. He tells us, "We have not because you ask not." It's like, what? Oh, you don't have that because you didn't ask for it. What do you mean ask for it? I mean, ask just like you. And like he said to Joel the prophet, he told the weak to say, "I'm strong." The weak said, the weak would be saying, they didn't say right there, I'd be lying to say I'm strong when I'm so weak.
Mm.
How you gonna lie saying what God said? He said, let the weak say I'm strong. I say, have you ever gone into McDonald's or Burger King, and you go in and you say, if you go in with an unspoken request, I said, what are they going to give you? Huh? I said, if you go in there with an unspoken request, what are you going to get? They're going to ask you to please step over to the side, and when you can speak it, you can get back in line.
Okay.
But God don't want us coming to him with no unspoken requests.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said you can ask him anything, and because he pays attention to it. Now, one of the I like that and like it, and he said, through faith and patience, you inherit the promise. Through faith and patience, I could see that going back to the farm. They used to do this. I used to. It's not on the farm now, but I used to get 2 jars, get a seed, get two seeds, same seed, but put them in 2 different jars with dirt and what. And one jar, I put it in there and water it on the top, and the other one put it in there and water it on the top, and then start speaking to it on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that one would start really perking up, because everything, there's nothing in life that doesn't work by a word. There's nothing in life that make my, I meant to say this when I used to work at one of the grocery stores, well, King Supers. They got an injury, and was making quite a bit of money because I was working in the warehouse and working 10, 12 hours a day rather than just the normal work time. But got injured over there and had to have an operation on my neck and shoulder.
Mhm.
And so they that was such a big deal that I help me Lord, I mean, but it was such a big deal that the the injury was a big deal. I went down from $30 an hour to $15. No, I went down from quite a bit of money per week down to $15 or so an hour, which was really not good. And that was the Lord he didn't authorize that, and I had to realize that he hadn't organized that and realize what I needed to do to come out of that. I still have a little trouble with my back area, and but I have not completed. Like I said, I used to be in Taekwondo, but I haven't really done the exercises that I really need to do, and probably not eating properly too, because we are 3 parts: spirit, soul, and body, and each part needs to be worked on. So, well, you
Well,
guys,
good. Well, we appreciate you being here today, John.
yeah,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. And this is
Fellow Navy man. I was in a little over 20 years.
okay. This is you guys are something else. And,
Well, we appreciate you coming in.
well, I appreciate this. I mean, if you asking me to, I mean, this is something. Man, I love you guys.
All right. Thank you.